You are listening to Within Tolerance, a podcast for machinists by machinists. I'm your host, Dylan Jackson of Proteum Machining. And this week, I am so happy to have Chris Zappettini in studio, which is in the new shop.
Yeah, this is bonkers. It's so cool because this is our third in person, second
or third, one of them.
And we did it on a single mic before. And this is such a different experience, but it's so cool.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we have like a room to ourselves. You know, like next time there will hopefully be, a couple chairs, comfy chairs instead of like the desk chairs that Brad and I use every day. And
right.
I'll build this out a little more.
Oh, it's so dope.
Yeah. But let's get into it, man. Give us an update. What's been going on, what you've been eating for breakfast, all that good stuff.
I know a lot of people have been asking, what have I been eating for breakfast and how long and how much I've been sleeping. I mean, a majority of the questions we got were for that specific thing. It was kind of insane, actually. So, lots of hard-boiled.
No. Nobody gives a shit about that. Let's get into it.
Well, I got like 15 or 20 minutes of breakfast content, baby.
But so you've been traveling more, even more than I think last time we were talking.
This has been probably some of the most intense travel that I've had through like the entirety of the business, actually, which has been interesting to deal with. I was still in the middle of driving. I drove, I was in LA, then I drove back to Arizona, then I drove to Salt Lake, then to Boise, then from Boise to Pennsylvania, and did like a week of training or 3 days of training in Pennsylvania, 2 days of training in Delaware, and then then I went home to my house, got a new refrigerator, so completed the research.
When was the last time you were home?
March.
Oh my God.
Yeah. And so I stayed there for like 2 days. Then I flew to LA on Monday morning, flew to LA to like wrap that project up because I had done 2 faces of the tombstone and got them running. And then I did the other 2 and finished it. And then Wednesday flew here, and that was fun because I told my customer that I was going to be here, and then I show up and they're like, "You're here." It's like, yeah. And that's also, they moved the machines 1 bay over and took everything off the table, which was like, after I emailed them and was like, "Hey, don't take everything off the table," they did. And then they called me, they're like, "So where do we put these?" And it's like, just, I'll be back. Just put the vices back on. So, but I show up yesterday. They're like, "Oh, we weren't expecting you. We're prototyping. We're using the machine." So I just didn't do anything yesterday. And then today we got it back up and running and more or less finished, but it's just like, what the fuck? And then tomorrow morning I'll fly to Salt Lake in the morning, and then I'll go down to like Gunnison or whatever to help a Selway customer out. And then probably Saturday I'll fly back to Boston to go to Delaware on Sunday and start the big turnkey. But now it's like more or less over. Like the frantic amount of travel is over now that the turnkey's starting.
Good.
So it's like all of this travel has just been to be like, we have a hard start to the turnkey. So like once that starts, there's no like, it's not like, "Oh, sorry guys.
Right.
I gotta go."
Yeah. You got to wrap up all the small stuff before you do that.
Yeah.
And I forget, where was because you'd sent me some pictures of like the mill turn that you were working on. Was that for the Delaware project?
No. So there was, the week of training I did was 2 MX 100s, 2 different customers, both with MX 100s, the Nakamura with the B-axis head, and did 3 days at one customer that I've helped program before, and they were like over the moon. It's some of the most positive feedback I've ever received from a customer, and they're like, "Oh, we're gonna have you do all of our programming on the robo drills." I didn't even touch the robo drills, but they're like, we had chatted about like they use Gibbs Cam right now. And I was like, it's fine. They have Camplete, but they don't use it. Like very classic story of people who like, this software sucks. And it's like, no, it's awesome. You just haven't set it up yet.
Right.
And like there's just a decent amount of time to like set up Camplete, which is like a slog. Mm-hmm. And if you don't have a good like reseller, it gets really annoying. Like that was kind of like Connor Manufacturing's whole thing was like, well, like nobody's telling you why it is or isn't working. And like there's only like a handful of people in the country that are like really, really good at it, like James Mayette or Mike Kaminsky. And so people don't set it up, and then they're like, well, this is garbage. And then they have like some post processor like out of like Gibbs or whatever that just like doesn't work. Especially like the Haverly is like very specific. You don't have an M6 to change tools on a Haverly. They want you to use a G6 because it's this like huge macro, because it does all this work in the background. Well, not in the background. It's all in the macro of like, oh, is that tool in the carousel or is it in the other magazine? And do I need to go get it?
Okay. You know? So like it triggers the robot if it needs to. It makes sure that tool gets to it no matter what.
And it would normally be an M6, but RoboDrill's like one of the only machines that I know of on a Fanic that doesn't use like a 9001 program as tool change macro. It's just like hard built into the ladder. You just hit M6 and it happens. It doesn't like run a macro, but like almost every other machine, Matsura, like Matsura methods, the Kiwa, whatever, that's all like running a macro. So you can like put a bunch of shit in there if you feel like,
right.
But not that one.
Okay.
Yeah. It's pretty interesting. And if you try and like put it in there, it's like, it gets really wonky with you.
Right. Well, I'm sure Camplete sees a G6 and it freaks out. Like,
yeah, you can make it. You can make it work, but you just have to like do some work to like make it. So they like, yeah, you want to do this? And like, and I was like, yeah, I'll program for you, but I'm not using Gibbs. I'll use Fusion. Like, cool. Yeah, that's fine.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's cool though. I mean, so you had two separate customers with MX100s.
Yes.
And then this one coming up is also an MX100 and something else?
This is WT250 and WT100.
Okay.
So just twin spindle, twin turret machines.
Okay. Gotcha.
And like 10 parts or something.
Nice.
Yeah. It's not too bad. They're all fairly straightforward parts, like 200 micron true positions and whatever else to like 2 datums.
Oh, nice. Okay.
Yeah. It's pretty like, it's like, this isn't going to be too bad.
Right.
It'll be fine.
So you're not hesitant at all. It's just getting there and doing the work at this point.
Right.
I gotcha.
Yeah. Yeah. No, like part of like, this is like a new-ish customer for me. Well, I mean, it's with a methods dealer. And so before we went and did this, they had me do some training. And that's where the MX100s come in, because like methods they're just busy, you know?
Right.
And so they were like, can you come help this guy? He has questions, like pretty basic questions. And like one of their probing systems wasn't set up, so we had to do that. And that was a fun one. And now like he wants to use block delete, but on lathes that gets kind of weird because block delete kind of ends up getting reserved for the bar loader. So if you have it set up to use block delete to like go into the bar loading program, then it just like skips every block delete no matter what, whether it's on or off, until it's ready to change a bar. Then it'll hit them all.
Okay. I think it's Akuma that has multiple block deletes, right?
Fanic has it too.
Oh,
it's
do
just
they?
an option.
Okay.
Yeah, it's just an option. And like on a Nakamura, you can use like G471 to like look directly at the ladder signal and make a decision that way too.
Oh, cool.
Which is dope.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's really cool. Because I've always thought that like, having that on off switch is super handy, but having more than one would be a little more handy.
Right. Yeah. Like most Matsuras come with 9 or 10.
Really? Wow.
Yeah, it's sick.
That's super cool.
Yeah, you just do like /2, whatever, and that works.
Oh.
It's like very easy to implement.
I like that.
Yeah.
I like that a lot. Yeah, I feel like there's a lot of fairly complex logic you can build in with just a few gates like that.
Yeah, exactly.
Huh.
You're like, oh fuck, I gotta write this down.
No. That is really cool though. So that's you finished up in LA.
Yep.
And so yeah, now it's just the
mostly finished here. Like,
are you going back tomorrow?
No.
Okay.
My flight's at like 6 in the morning or something.
Oh,
don't look at the time.
I feel a little bad about having you down, but that's fine.
I don't.
You chose this.
Yeah.
Well, I guess we can get into questions. We got plenty.
Hold on. What have you been up to?
Working.
Yeah.
I don't have any good updates. It's just like head down. Well, I texted you. I was working the Zappettini work schedule of like far too many late nights and, meeting my next door neighbors, midnight cleaners a couple times here.
People's favorite topics, barely sleeping.
Yeah, exactly. Nothing exciting. Harmla's still going well. We'll get into it. We got a bunch of questions about how I'm liking it and it versus other machines and stuff, but I'm feeling much more at home with it.
Yeah, it seems like you kind of hit the ground running.
Yeah.
And you're just like it's like that when you like see in cartoons, where people like the cartoonish fall, where you're like, I'm getting my balance, and you're like working your way through it, and now you're like doing the blind like A minus 90 with like swerve cuts, and it's like, I think our boys got it.
Yeah. I definitely trust the sim infusion, whether that's to a fault or not. We'll find out.
Well, what else do you got?
Right. Well, and that's what I've been trying to tell people, like, because I've had people reach out and ask, like, how are you even proving some of this stuff out? And it's like, you kind of like, if you're doing a tool center point tool path, you don't really know when it's going to like whip around a corner. Like you can kind of guess, but like, I can't just be seesawing on the feed override and like hoping and praying that that'll like, I'm never going to catch a crash that way. Like I would be either doing too much so that I would forget to hit feed hold, or I'm just watching it and like trusting in sim. And so it's like, I just gotta, I make sure I really check my holders. I define my tools correctly. I define, like, I use the same template workflow so that I have the same work holding in there, the same selected 0 point center point all the time.
I like just posted about this on LinkedIn, like the importance of having digital twins and making sure that's really good, because that just gives you a ton more confidence when you're doing these things. I mean, your post processor obviously is a variable, but like once you do a couple of them, it's like, well, it seems to do what I need it, what it shows in cam or in cam. So like, why would it be different this time?
Yeah, it's just weird. Like I talked to a bunch of people before I bought the Hermwa and was asking them how they felt comfortable running code like this, and they all were like, you just kind of get used to it, and like you look for the verification, like 100% no errors, and you might run to the end of the simulation just to make sure like everything looks machined, but past that, you kind of just send it. Like I like check tools as they come in. I make sure that like they look correct for the most part, but like,
looks right.
Yeah.
What's the worst?
Well, and the Hermla, the way that the tool table's set up, it automatically sets any tool that's not flagged as already set.
Okay.
So every time I run a tool, like I'll stay for the tool set and watch the laser probe it. And if I'm really worried about it, I'll like go to the tool table and actually watch the numbers update and be like, that radius is like, a 1/8, a 3/16 end mill like comes up as 0.935. And I'm like, okay, that checks out. Like 2/10, I'll take it, But yeah, it's weird. It's not, I'm so used to that old school mentality of like watching the tool come in and being very careful and like, really like having to, watch my back. And now it's just like, I guess it works. My move almost always is just like if it hits the approach plane correctly, it's like
well, that's probably fine from there. Like what, like at any point from now to like it hits the op stop or whatever, like it's in God's hands.
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
like, whatever's going to happen is going to happen. I'm never going to catch it.
Yeah.
It's like, if it just like starts to like dive into like, what are you going to do?
Yeah. The only things that have not worried me, but like the only times I've ever really watched something come in was the first time I did tapping in the machine and then the first time I did chip breaking tapping.
Yeah.
And it was because like, it was like, I don't know if I haven't even tested my post to make sure. And like, you know, the Heidenhain cycles are like fairly user readable. So like I saw that it said like,
that's a tap.
Yeah, well, exactly. It was like tapping cycle or chip breaking tapping cycle. And I was like, oh, cool. Okay. Like it posted out a cycle.
Yeah.
Probably the right one. I guess we'll send it.
Yeah. The tap's still there.
Yeah.
Dude, like I've had so much bad experiences with tapping at other shops that like I'm just like, there was a shop I worked at where like for whatever reason there was no tap survived in that place. It was so bizarre.
Oof.
And you're like, what the fuck is going on here? And it just like makes you scared of tapping. But on like my machine or whatever, it's like I've tapped like hundreds of holes with the same tool.
Yeah.
You're like, but it still freaks me out every time. I'll like put my headphones on and I'll just like, once I see that it's going to the right spot, I'm like, I'm just going to walk away while it taps. I
broke
see it break.
My first tap in probably 8 months yesterday. In a brother too. It wasn't even in the Hermla. Like
it's embarrassing.
I know it's super embarrassing, but it was an M3 going down like half an inch with a spiral flute cut tap.
Okay.
And I made the noob mistake. So many people will know this. If you run a Speedio, you have to confirm your changes and save your changes. And I'm so good about that. I always do it. And I went in to add a PEC because I'd forgotten to do it in the program. Added it to all the spaces that were half inch deep. Thought I saved it. Sent the tap. And was like, why did it break? And then I went to change the spindle speed because I was going to a form tap.
Yeah.
And I was like, why are none of my pecs there? And I was like, you've got to be kidding me.
Joking. Yeah.
It was a very frustrating day.
Damn.
Yeah.
Drill tap machine fucking failed on the tap. How embarrassing.
Just so dumb. Yeah. So dumb.
They've had a handful of like threading issues.
Yeah. Also broke some Moldinos randomly.
Yeah.
I have terrible luck with the 832 one. It is now the second time I've broken an 832 one in 316. Running the speeds and feeds they give me. And most recently, I told you, the one that broke, this program had 4 Moldinos, all running in 316, all about the same depths. 832 was brand new, and it was the only one that had a problem.
Yeah.
The M4 one ran fine. The 1032 one ran fine. I think I had a 632 in there as well. And it was like, those all were totally fine.
Damn.
So, yeah, just growing pains, I guess.
Yeah. Freaking, isn't there something about like the cross section of an 832 being kind of silly?
I don't remember what thread it is, but I know there are a couple there where people just say that like they're inherently shitty.
Yeah.
But like I wouldn't think that a thread mill would suffer from that.
Who knows?
I don't know.
Just trying to make excuses for the tool.
I appreciate it. Yeah, I appreciate it. I've tried to
rationalize it in your head.
Yeah. And it's just weird. I don't know.
Dropping down to your knees at like 9 at night. What?
Yeah. All I can think is that it wasn't adequate chip flushing. So I told you I bought like 2 coolant flush power grip collets. So like next time,
you're like, this is never fucking happening to me again.
Well, like at least next time if it breaks, I know it's not coolant related. Yeah. Like it's like, well, it was getting a gallon a minute of coolant on it. Like there's no way. So yeah, but past that, no real new updates. I think we talked about the blaster last time you were on. That's been kicking ass. Like we've had a bunch of blasted parts that we had to do, and it's just so nice throwing parts in there and not having to clean the crap out of them. And it just works.
And like a ton of people are like reached out to you about anodizing, and the shit came out like minty.
Perfect. Yeah, exactly.
Crisp.
I think it has a lot to do with having a good anodizer more than anything.
Right.
Shocker.
Yeah. Good. Breaking news. Good people do good work.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, besides that, we're just, slowly, I'm kind of going room to room and adding furniture and shelving. Actually, that brings up the first question. Tux Garage asks, how's the new shop layout? Any drastic changes since moving in? How's the Hermla working out? What's the next big buy? UR, arm, or pallet loading machine? Shop layout's awesome. I'm really happy with how we did it. Like the machines, I think, are in very good places. Leaves us a lot of room in the middle to kind of move around.
Yeah.
Yeah, right now it's just going kind of office to office. I've been setting up, we have like a 3D printing and laser room that's a little more settled now. Inspection is getting more settled. I now have the semblance of a podcast room, which is cool.
This is insane.
Yeah. Server room is getting more outfitted. I need some shelves in there so that it doesn't look as trash piley as it is right now.
Yeah.
Kitchen's looking good. Got that black whiteboard in there, which is nice.
Totally original idea.
Yep.
Yeah.
Definitely have never seen it from anybody, especially Easton.
Yeah,
he definitely didn't come up with it. No.
Nope.
So yeah, shop layout's great. Nothing drastic. Just adding. Really, it's just like shelves and desks.
Yeah, I think I like commented when I can't. It just looks more like. I mean, I guess I've seen the progression in person like 3 or 4 times now, and it's like you can see it progressively getting like more lived in.
Yeah,
and like it's settling. Because I mean, everything's conceptually like in your head it works one way, but then now it's like it's basically the same, but it's like there's stuff.
Yeah, exactly. Well, we've done enough work in here now that it's. I think anything that wasn't going to work, we would have fixed real quick.
All right.
Like I think it's just little things really. Hermla's great. Next big buy is probably a auto bandsaw.
Oh,
I think.
Yeah.
Because like we still borrow the one at Brad's old work for stainless steel. Like our chop saw is just not up to it. I actually went to try to cut a 1.5 by 2 inch bar today. Yeah. And like sat there for 5 minutes as it was kind of slowly chewing away at it and got like a quarter through it. And I was like, hey Brad, can you go cut these tomorrow on your way into work?
Yeah.
So yeah, we really want an auto saw. I really want an auto CMM. That's on the list as well. I don't know which one of those will be first.
Yeah. Get a Dirty Max.
I'm not sure what I'm going to get yet.
Yeah.
I was pretty sold on a Duramax. I'm still struggling because I really like our Hexagon sales rep. I think Tate is probably the best technical salesperson I've dealt with,
right?
Or one of the best.
Dialed in.
Yeah, you met him, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or
did you meet him?
I don't think I've met. We've probably crossed paths, but like I've talked to him on like LinkedIn and stuff.
Okay.
He seems pretty dialed in.
Yeah, he's awesome, and he like what I've always loved about working with him is that he programs CMMs. So like when I would go to him and be like, "Hey, this is super annoying," he'd be like, "Yeah, it is. Here's some workarounds that like I found." Nice. He would never like struck me as like the used car salesman kind of thing. It was just like open and honest communication. I'll do right by you kind of stuff. And then the other thing, Joe Alonzo brought up, he has a Wenzel.
Okay.
And he brought up Wenzel, and I think TNC was the other brand that he brought up.
Yeah.
And they're both software agnostic.
Okay.
And so like he's using VeraSurf.
Yeah.
VeraSurf, yeah. That's the inspection version of VeraCut.
Okay.
And what's cool about VeraSurf, or at least from what he said, I haven't tried it out, obviously, but it's, made by CAM people. So like it's very easy to program, and like approaching it as a machinist, it sounds like it's much easier to use. So I might look down that route as well, because like having a more open CMM, I don't think is a bad thing.
Right.
But we'll see. I'm nowhere near at the point where I'm like making sales calls and, asking for literature or anything like that. Like I'll probably look around at IMTS and really start bugging people then.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you just made like a ton of big purchases.
Yeah, exactly. And then UR arm or pallet loading machine. I think we've talked about that a lot. Like I'll definitely go for a pallet loading machine.
Yeah.
For the kind of parts that we do.
Mm-hmm.
Like I told you, Hermla told me that they just released fairly recently a hybrid system that loads vices or pallets. And I'm pretty excited about that. So yeah. Avery Clark asked, will Haas actually be able to compete with Fanuc and Brother with the DC-1, or will it be a dud like the last small machine UMC 350 they tried to make?
I don't think it's trying to. I mean, I'm sure that they'll say it's trying to compete with RoboDrill and Brother, but I feel like it's more in the like Sil Tormach range than anything. I mean, it's like a Chinese-made machine with a Haas control like hung on it.
Yeah,
I've had it suggested so far one time for like a project, and it's like I won't do the project. Like not like. I don't want to do a first gen Haas project.
Period.
Yeah. Like any first gen Haas, whether it's made in China or not. Like it's just every first gen Haas seems to have like these like crazy bugaboos, but they fix it. They tend to fix it Gen 2 after like people complain really, really hard. But like UMC went through pretty drastic changes. The DS30 SSY went through some pretty drastic changes, you know. So like, and like UMC 500, which you think like, oh, we figured it out on the 750, but like,
nope.
Yeah, like massive chip issues and like conveyor issues and stuff like that. So like, and that was all machines that they themselves built. So now like adding this extra layer into it, kind of scares me. I mean, it might be fine, you know. Like, I'm sure there's going to be like a lot of anecdotal evidence out there where people are like, oh, you know, like I had a great experience. I don't know what people are talking about, but like I had lunch with or dinner with a buddy the other day, and he was like, the plural of anecdotal is an anecdata, you know. So like,
I love that.
That was really good.
I really like that.
And so like, are they going to compete? Like, I mean, probably. Like in terms of like machines sold, like people are gonna buy them because
I feel like I'd buy that over a Sil, because you'd have support, like that. Because like I think the big misconception right now, and I don't think I'm wrong on this. Titans of CNC is not doing service on Sil. Like if you go on their website, I think it blatantly says that they do not do service. They'll do parts, but they don't do service.
So who does service?
I think it's like the third party guys who have always done Sil service since before Titans was the dealer.
Nice. So you have a guy who's gonna sell them very aggressively and like zero supports team after that. Like fingers crossed.
Right. And if you're buying a Chinese machine either way, I'd much rather the one that like has control parity with probably what you're used to, and has techs everywhere.
Yeah, that's the thing it for sure has going for it.
Yeah. And I watched the test cut video the other day. It was it's a drill tap center. Like it's not a bad machine. It doesn't seem like it. There was a few comments on there that were like, "Is this going to be the best Haas machine?" And I was like,
I don't know. Like I'm not really sure why the UMC 350 didn't do too well. Well, actually, I do know why. It was just priced inappropriately. It was so closely priced to the UMC 500 that it's like the difference between like a VF1 and a VF2 or a VF3 and a VF4, where you're like, I can spend like 5 or 10 grand more and get like much more machine for the price. Like why? Like the UMC 350 should have been like 80-ish, 90,000, but it was like 115.
Yeah.
And you're like 120, it's like 130 for the UMC 500.
And the non HD version, if I remember right, had like a 8-pound table limit.
Yeah, you could put like a vise on it, but no parts.
Yeah. So I don't know. Yeah. His other question was, when starting a new shop, does it ever make sense to go for a new machine or just stick to a proven used machine?
What does a proven used machine mean?
I don't know.
You know? Like that's like, I guess if you can realistically afford a new machine then you buy yourself peace of mind, you know, because like you had with the Kitamura, like you do like, and how I am with the Matsura is like, it's today the day that it doesn't turn on, and it's never happened, you know.
Oh,
like,
I had it happen
multiple
times in the Kitamura, and like
like
we had days. I remember spending 3 solid days troubleshooting the tool changer on the Kitamura, and like we bought it because I had already had 3 years of Kitamura repair experience.
Right.
And even then I was struggling on this. And like,
yeah,
I would say if you can afford it or you can swing it, you should buy a new machine.
Yeah.
You should only buy a used machine if you really know what you're getting into. Like if you've swapped a servo drive before and re-input the parameters for it, go for it. Get a used machine.
Right.
Like, but otherwise you better have a good service network.
Yeah. That was like, I was not at all I was considering buying new when this Matsura came up, and like the price was right. I mean, obviously like $6,000 for for the Matsura. I mean, it was broken. I need like a $12,000 part, but still, it like, but it's a Matsura in Selway's territory. I do work with Selway all the time, so like it was when I needed it fixed. They fixed it. Yeah. You know, and
exactly.
Like everything else that was wrong with it, they were like, oh, this is what you need to do, blah, blah, blah. Like, this is no problem. Like, James Mayette got me manuals for it. He, like, everything, you know, it's like, cool. So I'm set. But, proven used machine, like, is such a weird, it's like borderline oxymoron. Like, unless there's like certain shops that you know of, potentially, like there's a guy that where Jason used to work, Paramount. Like any machine he has that he's selling, that's a proven used machine because he like does annual PMs. He keeps like takes meticulous care of his machines, and you know, like anything he gets, it's basically pristine. It's very well taken care of. That's a proven used machine. But like if you're just like buying something off fucking Craigslist,
right?
Like to that point with Jason's issue is he bought a Sodic wire, quote unquote proven, and it showed up broken as shit.
Right. Yeah. You could still lose out even if you buy a supposedly proven machine. Yeah.
So like, I mean, it comes down to like money.
Yeah.
Like if you can afford it, like go new for sure. But like if you're buying new, like you shouldn't like do that thing that people do where they like buy the machine and then they're on like Instagram, like, how do I find work? And like, what?
Yeah. I'm in no way saying buy a new machine.
Right.
And like, you know, be like, I don't want people to see like, oh, Haas is giving me a machine with 0% interest for a year. I should buy one. And I have no idea what I'm doing. Like, don't do that. I'm not saying that.
Right.
I'm just saying that like, if you can afford to do, like, if you're deciding between like a $50,000 robo drill and like getting a loan out for the other 20 or 30 grand and buying a Speedio,
right?
I would buy
the Speedio.
Yeah. So it's
all day.
Yeah.
I was just saying, like, I've seen that.
So
you're like, what is going on? And they're doing, those people tend to do like okay, but it's just like, man, and that's like another end of like the ballsy spectrum that it's like, that's very interesting.
Yeah, I don't run like that. I just couldn't. Like I like to know the risks before I go into something.
True.
Let's see. Pretty Neat asked, what are your thoughts about ownership of a building to have your shop in?
If I could, like, there is a building down the street from my house in Massachusetts that's been for sale for like 2 years, and I like want to buy it so bad. I mean, it kind of locks you in, but also, like, I will say, like, Andrew Henry talks about this a lot because he owns his building in Indiana. I think that he doesn't have to, like, if he wants to make any changes, he just fucking does it.
Yeah.
Like I want to do this. I want to do that. I want to throw up another building. I want to expand. I need this, whatever. He just fucking, like, parking lot. I get a parking lot now.
Right.
You know?
Exactly.
Like, like there's just, like, I need more power. I bring in more power. It's not like, well, you know, like oh, I want a C, you get a C. Like in the situation I was in,
Yeah.
when I asked my former landlord, can I put AC in here? And he's like, doesn't factor into the long-term plans of the building. Like, what the fuck does that mean? Like, I'm trying to improve it. I said I would pay for it. Like,
Yeah.
but so I think that's another one. Like, if you can afford it and like it's on a decent enough plot of land, like I would say, yeah, that's absolutely the way to go.
Oh, I'd do it in a heartbeat. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like our next place, I hope, or my plan is to build a place for us because I haven't found anything locally that like I would want to buy,
Right.
but there's plenty of land or enough land out there that I think we could buy a plot and,
Yeah.
you know, just run 1,000 amps of 480 to it and be
Yeah.
like, all right, let's do this.
I'm good to go forever.
Yeah. What I want to do, I found out about this because we were inquiring at a space, but the guy who owns, I don't remember what the cabinet company is called, but he's put these up all over the US. He'll build like a 10,000 square foot building and then cut it down the middle, and 5,000 is his company in it. And then he just leases the other 5,000.
Oh,
and
interesting.
so like basically his tenants pay for all of his costs.
mortgage.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I would love to do something like that if we can swing that, because that would be even better.
Yeah.
But worst case, even just building a dream shop would be kind of awesome.
Yeah. One of the there's a listener to the podcast who I was gonna do work with. Like we signed a contract and everything, but it was like literally like days before my mom died, so we never ended up doing anything. But like when I met with him, he's out in Nevada. He was talking because I don't remember what he did before, but they own the building that they, and he's like, I wish I got into industrial real estate like 10 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
He's like, because we have like 90% of this building, and there's like one guy at the end that basically pays for our mortgage.
Mm-hmm.
And you're like, that's dope.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I would love to buy that stuff. Windmill Motorsports asked us, aside from initial price, say a PPS, puck chuck, 5th axis Lang, which is the cheapest in the long run to build as many as 30 or 50 fixtures used 1 to 3 times a year? He's trying to get into a fixture system, but doesn't want to be, you know, shelling out a ton of money.
I mean, if you're taking the cost of the pallet system out of the equation, then I'd say it's probably Shunk, just because it's like 2 big ass pull studs and like that's it, as opposed to like 4 pull studs or
I don't know how much their pull studs are. That was I meant to do some research before this, because he said like a puck chuck stud is $17, but
what's the puck chuck?
that's the one from Saunders.
I don't know anything about that. I know Pearson is coming out. He has like a new Max, Max 4, I think it's called, which is pretty cool. It's like pretty cool. Like it's like his version of the Shunk system. That seems pretty dope.
Yeah.
I mean, it's all comes down to like the hardware kit. I think the hardware kit for the PPS is like $80, $100, something like that. And that's not too bad. It's easy, but like I like it. It is fairly invasive to the pallet because you have to basically make like 4 giant ass holes.
Right.
The like rock lock, I mean, not a huge fan of the 5th axis stuff. I mean, it seems like there's a decent amount of inconsistency in that product, but so like you have like Lang or HWR if you're going like 96/52 millimeter stuff.
So at least on Titans of CNC, the Contech mounting kit is $189 for Vero S.
Right.
So that is definitely more expensive too. Lang is $75 for 4 pull studs.
Right. I was just talking to the Hadrian guys, and they decided to go with Shunk over Aroa. The Shunk stuff is like, I mean, shoot, like I like the Shunk stuff, and I like the Shunk stuff. I mean, dude, I like it all. Like that's the problem. Like I think it just like depends, because like I get people. I've done like quite a few Pearson projects, and like those are pretty solid. You know, you flip it over, you bore some holes, you thread mill some stuff, you insert some hardware, and you're good to go. But like you do have four things, and it kind of gets wonky when you're like putting hardware and stuff and how tall your pallet has to be. The 96 millimeter stuff, just the four pull studs, is nice, and it's not very invasive, you know?
Yeah.
Like it's not in there super deep and fairly cheap, but like I think your plate and your riser's probably going to be fairly expensive. But I mean, if you don't care about that, then like that's a good way to go. And it's very universal because then you can get vices too that accept that.
Yeah. There's no, I think that what it comes down to is there's no like clear cut winner here.
No.
It's kind of like, what compromises do you want to put up with?
Yeah, because like I like the flip side of that is like what do the parts look like? You know, like what are we fixturing? Because the nice thing about PPS is that it has like it's like 11 3/4 by like 8-inch like pad, like that's got a lot of surface area. So you have like it's rigid as fuck,
right?
Like they recommend like 12 by 16 pallets, and I've done much bigger than that, you know? And it's or like 10 by 16, and we've done much bigger than that, and it's like it still is very rigid,
right?
So I don't know. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I'm not sure that that's an easy question to answer. Let's see.
I would say with that one, if you do plan to automate, probably Shunk is your best bet.
Yeah.
That like if there's ever a thought of that, it's probably the easiest one to go straight into automation. I guess Pearson too is also fairly easy to automate, but
yeah, because you just flip a switch basically.
Yeah.
Very true. Artur asked, he says he is a shop coordinator, manager, foreman, head of the shop that's resisting change and the short and long term impacts that has. So he's got a lead guy who's a bit averse to change.
Right. And so the question is,
I guess, impact of that and like maybe how to deal with that.
Yeah. I mean, we kind of talked about this like a little bit in change management. I guess like it's hard to say without more context. Like,
right.
What is the goal of the change, and like what is he averse to changing? I'm always a fan of like the inception method, where you just kind of like drop it like hints instead of making it like direct, and then like just leading somebody into a certain and like down a certain path until it's their idea, like, and then it's fine.
Right.
But, like that's sometimes, I mean, I feel like we've talked about this a lot, is like everybody has different personalities. So you can't talk to people and like expect the same out of people every time. So like without knowing this person or knowing more information about that person being like we don't know what they're trying to do. Like, is this like, oh, we want to like stack material this way instead of that way? Or is this like we're changing camp systems,
right?
Type of thing.
Yeah. Not very, very fair. Matt was asking you specifically, they're looking at getting a MX850 with a pallet changer. Have you used one, and what do you think? And also generally about Matsura's. He's never used one and has heard good things. So general impressions would be great to know.
I mean, huge fan of Matsura. 850's a monster. I think that'd be like, if you go with like the straight Matsura pallet changer, that's like a PC4, I want to say, or he might be going like Trinity system, which gives you like 18 pallets, like what like Brian Kippen has, and they just rip. It's a very sturdy machine,
I would bet. Yeah,
it's like it's huge. It's like, but again, like, what are you cutting? Like, yeah, I don't know. They're very stable. Like, I haven't had any like. I mean, most of my Matsura stuff is on MX330s or like MAMs on the smaller ones. So I only imagine they get like better as they get bigger. I mean, like I've seen Brian's. It's beefy as hell.
Right.
So
Well, but James told us that story of like,
right,
make sure you get the right table for it,
right,
and make sure your parts actually fit it. Because like the bigger, it's not like a 3-axis where like a bigger machine just gives you more opportunities. Like a bigger machine would make the tiny ass parts I'm making on the Hermla. If I had a,
like a 400 or
right, or a C62, like I couldn't imagine. Like, no,
let me get this like HSK 100,
right?
Just down in there.
Yeah.
No, I mean like. It'll do anything you want it to do. Like there's a lot of if you're getting the new one, then it's probably like I think the new interface dropped recently, which looks really nice. Yeah, it looks pretty cool. It's like they made it very modern. Like they've made it very uniform too. Like they're just kind of like I've worked on a 2019 and. To now, it's like, there's like they had like 3 or 4 different ways to like do one thing to try and like unify old school and new school, and I think they've just kind of dropped that.
Oh, good.
Yeah,
they're like no, what just new school.
I think that's like what Fanuc is doing. Like I see a lot of people go into like the back end, like on RoboDrills, you hit maintenance display and you go into like the old Fanuc, and when people they're like, do I have to do that on this machine? And I'm like, you should never be doing that. It's like, what do you mean? It's like, that will go away at some point, and you will have had years on a machine with IHMI and have learned nothing from it. So like, it's different, but it's better. So just use it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I can't say enough good things about Metzer. I like using them a lot. He'll probably like using it. It'll be good.
Yeah, I would think so. Spinning Slowly asked, would love to hear your opinions on things you would have done differently on the journey to where you both are at now. If you were offered a do-over, what would you change? What would you suggest to a new machinist who would want to pursue a similar path as well?
Damn, that's a big one.
Yeah,
because like I've been talking about this kind of a lot recently, because I'm like thinking about hiring people again, because I'm getting like crazy busy, and I'm like, it feels like almost every day somebody's like, I got another project, and it's like, what? Like, what do you mean? Like, I don't understand. Like, how could you have so many? Which is good. It's awesome. But it's like, I think back about, I mean, we were chatting about this like 2 days ago. Like, what would I change? And it's like, obviously, given the recent situation, like a non-compete, obviously. So that's one.
First and foremost.
Yeah,
yes.
First and foremost, like I'd probably do a non-compete for my hires. And then like I would not, like the biggest thing I could think of from a do-over would be not trying to get into automation, like for the sake of being an automation. Like that was I mean, I'm still climbing out of that hole, right, essentially, which has been like, it's like, what was I thinking? That's the biggest, I wish I could do that over. And I feel like I'm soft resetting right now, because I'm back to myself and I'm making a lot of money, and like my scheduling is a lot better, though it's like probably a little too tight. I mean, like obviously I'm basically like do it like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, like 5 flights this week, to like try and like wrap a bunch of stuff up, and that's just like, it's too much. But I'm kind of in an opportunity to do it over with a lot more experience at this moment. What advice would I give to somebody trying to do what I'm doing? Like, I don't know, really. Like, it's hard to do this stuff, like mostly because it's just really based on word of mouth. Like, I am in the position I'm in because I worked in the machine tool industry for like the last decade. So I have like a lot of connections. And so like essentially machine tool dealers act at a certain point, like act as my salesman,
right?
Because I can help their customers make parts fast. Yeah. And so like I can solve a salesman's problem very quickly. And that's good for them, whether or not they're making money directly off of what I'm doing. Like, it sells machines. Like, that like literally happened today.
Right.
Where I'm getting another project because Connor calls me. He's like, these guys, they need help. They can't even draw in Fusion. Like, you have to draw the models. Like, cool. And like, but they know they need the machine because they can't find it cheap enough. But they don't know where to start. That's where I come in.
Mm-hmm.
And Connor's like, just work with them directly. Don't even don't run it through us. Just work with them directly.
What I love about your business model is that it's self-reinforcing. Like both of you and your machine tool sales customers, friends, whatever, are incentivized to help each other out.
Yes.
Because when your customers succeed, they buy more machines.
Right.
And when the machine tools salesmen are selling more machines, they're too busy to take on all these projects and they give them to you. So like you guys, it's just this like positive reinforcement no matter what.
And it's what's happening right now.
Right.
Or it's like, I'm like, and like, I guess the other aspect of it, like with what I mean, with any business really is that like, I feel like we've all seen, like you start the business, you have a spike of success, like very early on where you're like, oh shit, I'm crushing. And then it kind of like plateaus or like falls off a cliff as like you're like, oh, okay, I got that, but I didn't think about anything after that. So then I wasn't getting more work and then it's gone. And now you have to like go back and like sell your ass or whatever to get more work. And that like journey, you know, for me to be where I'm at now has been like planting seeds for 3.5 years as ZC, but 10 years of my life, my professional life. So it's like, to do it, it's such a like, it's not the sexiest answer, but you just have to be very intentional about what you want and like just be kind of solely focused on that aspect, you know?
Yeah.
Like with what you're doing. I mean, this is probably a good point for like a good time for you to like, you jump in.
Yeah. Well, so I was thinking about this question quite a bit today. First off, I think that any answer I have to that question is automatically bullshit because it's
you have survivor bias.
Right. Sure. Exactly. I can only look back on my past things in retrospect and knowing where I am now. Like my first instinct to that was like, oh man, I wish instead of buying the F600, we had bought a 5-axis.
Right.
Like, and we had spent that money on that and like gotten into 5-axis earlier. But like all of the choices I've made up until this point, I have made with the knowledge at that point and thinking I'm doing the best possible thing for my company. And so like, yeah, of course, in retrospect, like, you know, of course, everybody who invested in Bitcoin is now like, well, of course you invest in crypto. And it's like, well, you hit the spike. Yeah, of course, that's what you say.
Yeah.
But, you know, back then when it was 1/100th of 1/10 of 1%, nobody thought that it was going to be worth anything.
Right. And so people were selling at like $100 and they're like, I can't believe it got here. Now it's at like 70,000.
Right. Exactly.
You're like, what?
So I think that any answer I have to that is just kind of like useless.
Yeah.
But to the other part of it, I would say that like connections are everything in this industry.
Yes.
I mean, kind of sidelighting what you said too. Like, you have to meet everyone, like, and just be rabid about meeting people and learning stuff. And like, I love talking. I mean, clearly because of the podcast, I love talking to people, even if I have no connection to that industry.
Yeah, because it's just fascinating. I mean, like when we've kind of like joked about it. You see people on LinkedIn that are like, guys, did you know you're supposed to like talk to people in real life?
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, of course. Like it's one of like, I mean, which is a learned skill. Like I guess that's another thing is like you could, if you're introverted and like suck at talking to people, also just like fake it till you make it. You know? Like as uncomfortable as it might be and as uncomfortable as you feel, you probably don't come off as that uncomfortable. I mean, you might a little bit, but like unless you're like fucking like shaking and sweating, like you're probably just like fine to like be like just have a conversation with somebody.
Yeah.
Most people are like down to chat.
Well, and you'll always find more people to talk to if you share your failures and your successes versus like I see a lot of people who are nervous to meet other shop owners or whatever. They come at it with this like fake bravado of like, oh, I've got to like show off my machines. I got to show off how many parts I can make. I got to show off all this stuff. And it's like,
yeah,
are you cool or not? Like that's what all I care about. Like I don't, cool, dude, whatever. Like I don't care what machines you like. It'd be cool if I want to learn what machines you run, but I don't need it shoved down my throat. Like that's not the thing that's going to make a connection with me.
It's like one of those things when you like see people who are just like, I'm the best at this. I'm the best. It's like, oh, so you probably suck. Like you're probably like really bad at this. Cause like, why are you telling me?
Yeah.
All the time. Like just let your work speak for itself. You know?
Yeah. Well, and I would argue most competent people will tell you how incompetent they are over how amazing they are.
Right. Yeah.
So yeah. Unfortunately, not the best answer to that, but I think that's the only one I got.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like these are like some really intense questions.
Yeah,
because they're like we could pontificate about them like forever.
Yeah,
really. I mean, like each one of those is like a podcast in and of themselves. like I mean, we did technically do an entire one on like change management,
right?
Like how would you redo your whole life? Like if you started over at 12 with all the knowledge you have right now, what would you do different? Like, fuck. Yeah. Let me have an existential crisis in the bathroom real quick. Get back to it.
Meticulous Engineering asked, you guys should talk about your worst and best customer experiences.
Best customer experience is probably my customer in Arizona over here, the one that does like seatbelts or whatever for airplanes. So like they are really good to work with. Very, very like down to earth. I just talked to him on the phone today. You know, he's like, oh, we got more work coming. Like, I mean, we're on the books to do like another project, but they move very, very slow. It's kind of interesting. But they've made like thousands of parts and they've had like one failure because they forgot to clamp it. And that's been incredible. They pay, which is cool. and for the most part, like we've just had like a very good time with them. Like worst customer experience, like my recency bias is like some of the people that I'm dealing with now is but they're not the worst because they pay, but it's just like I feel like I'm being punked sometimes because it's like, what do you mean you took everything off the table? Why did you like? What do you mean you don't know that I was coming? Like, what is going on now? But the worst is for sure like it was a customer last year that we had 2 giant ass projects with, and like the money got really weird, and like on one project where they're like. They signed the contract, they'd pay in 15 days, and then they're like, well, we don't do that. And it's like, the fuck
you're gonna. Yeah.
And it's like so they ended up owing me like, I don't know, it's like $35,000 or something. And I'm like, if you don't pay by this date, then I'm leaving. And like the money didn't hit the account, and so I left. And they're like, where'd you go? It's like, I'm gone until you pay. And then we had a meeting about how they were going to pay me. And they're like, so you're coming back? And it's like, not until I have the money.
Right.
And like, that just soured the relationship. But it's like, what the fuck?
Yeah. You did this. Like,
yeah. Yeah. They got like really upset with me because of that. And it's like, I don't know what you want. Like I'm providing you a service, you know? Like, you're not going to pay me net 60.
Right.
Like, what are you talking about?
Well, and especially if they agreed to net 15.
Right.
Like, it's a different story if, like, you guys didn't talk about it.
Yeah.
Or, you know.
It's, like, right there.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. They're like, oh, yeah. They're like, we looked at it, and I guess it is in there. We did agree to that. And it's like, right.
Yeah. So where's my money?
There was some, like, weird stuff where, like, they would send checks to my house. And I, like, one time I was like, so can we, like, void that? And then one time they did, and the other time they're like, no. Like, what do you mean no? They're like, no, we're not going to do that. it just got so bizarre.
Ugh.
It's like, what the fuck is going on?
Ugh.
And that was the one with like the giant automation project where like it went sideways, and then we tried to fix it, and then they wanted more. They tried to like they underscoped it, and we so we were driving towards that, and they're like, well, the cell needs to do these things, and it's like, right, so it's going to cost more money, and they're like, but why? It's like, because that's not part of the scope, and you need it to do a lot, like something that like a function that we don't even have. It's like a whole other system. And then they just brought in another contractor and had them do it, and then didn't pay us. So that was pretty cool too. So that was my worst customer experience. And that is like one of the biggest reasons why we're in the hole that we're in now, is like them. I mean, it's me, it's my fault more or less, but like for like entering into these stupid projects. but like that whole thing has been like massive learning experience, you know?
Right.
Yeah.
I've got a couple bad customer experiences for sure. One of them was like last year, the year before, and we made these fairly complex parts for them. They had 4th axis ops and 3 axis ops and anodize, and then post anodize cutting that needed specialty fixtures, and this like flexure in the part. And this flexure was designed with sharp corners. Like it's a bunch of overlapping cuts to make this flexure.
Yeah.
And I had a specific meeting with them before I even sent them a quote, because I was so worried about this. And I showed them the tool I was going to use, showed them what radius it would leave within these cuts. And they said, yep, no problem. We made the parts, sent them to them, and they said, oh, well, there's a spec for how much force needs to actuate this flexure, and yours is too stiff because of the radiuses in the corners. You need to fix these. I was like, no.
Yeah,
like, well, not even no. I just said like, there's no way for me to reset these up.
Yeah.
Like the flexure is already cut. There's
nothing there.
No, they're 10 or 15 thou wall of aluminum now, and this thing's like a slinky, and it's like, how do you expect me to recut this? And so like I did some research and found them some like needle files from McMaster. I was like, you can go in and like kind of file out all the corners with these, like that might fix them. I can remake the parts, but it's going to be another 4 weeks or 3 weeks or whatever.
Yeah.
And they just kind of like disappeared. And then I sent them an invoice and they paid it. And I was like, I guess you're not a customer anymore. Like, cool. Like I got paid. You got parts, I guess, that you can't use. Sorry.
Right.
You know,
this is where I'm like really thankful that like we read the pumpkin plan.
Yeah.
You know, because like I was telling you today, like with the experience that I'm having now, it's like I'm pumpkin planting these fucks.
Yeah.
Like
they're gourds, man. They're not big pumpkins.
I do love that. Yeah, they're gourds. Because it's like they pay and everything, but it's like they're wasting my time.
Yeah.
And like I'm so busy. It's like, what the fuck are we even doing here?
Right.
Like they've paid me like a decent amount of money at this point, like 85% of the total cost of the project. And it's just like, and they have a need for parts, but it's like the urgency is on one part of the spectrum, but not on the other end.
Right.
Where they're like, oh yeah, like this one, like fucking jackwagon, like comes in and it's like, oh, are you using that? And he rolls in on a scooter, you know, and just like very nonchalant, and then like rolls out on the scooter, like, and it's like, what the fuck just happened?
That's frustrating.
Yeah, it was really bizarre, but it's like, they're fine, you know, like I think I probably, like, I say that I kind of got Graham wrapped into that a little bit, but so I might do a little bit more there, or Graham will do some and I'll do something with him, but I don't know about like long term.
Yeah,
because it's just a headache.
And I don't really have like a specific story for best customers, but like I mean, my customers are just awesome. Like the ones that I really like, they're super cool. Like a lot of them have become close friends. Like we talk outside of work.
Nice.
The other ones that aren't like that friendly, I'm still very friendly with. Like they'll just call me out of the blue and be like, we just wanted to let you know that you're doing an awesome job and we love everything you do. And you're one of our favorite shops to work with. Yeah. And I'm like,
BT dubs, you crushed.
Right. Exactly. It's like, oh, okay. Thank you so much. Like, it's so weird to get a call from a customer and you're like, oh, did I miss a shipment? Did parts go bad? And they're just like, hey, you're just awesome. Thanks. Bye. And you're like, okay. You're like, fuck yes. Like, I don't even know how to react to this.
I was stressing when I saw you call.
Exactly. So yeah, I again, I don't have really any concrete stories about that, but yeah, they're just awesome. Kevin Strom was asking you, what are your long-term plans for ZC? Like, what would you like your business and life to look like?
Oh man, that's a tough one. I mean, it's constantly like evolving. Like the more I'm doing a lot more work on the East Coast now, and I'm like, fuck, I really like it on the East Coast. Like,
oh, really?
Yeah, it's kind of tough. Like I really thought it was gonna like click in with like Idaho, but like Idaho just like I like it a lot, but it just doesn't. It hasn't clicked. You know, like it doesn't feel like home. It feels like Idaho.
Did California feel like home when you had an apartment there?
No.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you're just an East Coast boy.
Yeah.
Through and through.
Yeah. Like here feels like home.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Arizona does.
Very interesting.
Like,
I mean, I guess you spent a lot of time here.
I lived here for like 10 years.
Yeah.
I grew up in California, you know, and I lived here for 10 years. So like here feels like home. I like being here. So I'm excited to do that project in like July.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, my truck's going to be done pretty soon.
Ooh.
He texted me earlier and he's like, we're basically down to like tires and front end bushings. And I was like, fuck yeah.
Where is it?
It's in my buddy's shop, Superior Racing Development over in like Glendale or Peoria or something. He was in Tempe, but then they had to move. But I really like the East Coast. And like, so I mean, probably want to, like, long term, probably have a machine shop, you know, but mostly like not to make parts for people, but to make like
fixtures,
what I'm doing now, fixtures to support projects and things like that. It would be cool to be able to do like anodizing in house if possible, just because like our whole thing is that we're like kind of turning things around quickly. So like relying on an outside vendor kind of sucks. Mm-hmm. And that would be nice. So that would be where it's at. And maybe like 5-ish employees. Like if it's going, like, I don't know where it stops right now. Cause it just seems to be like accelerating at like a crazy rate where I'm going to, like I said, need to start hiring people. Like my life would be maybe not so much travel.
Like 5 people, would that be like 2 machinists and then 3 other views? Basically, or?
Yeah, I think so. And maybe, I think that's what it would be. And even the machinists probably would be stationary engineers, you know?
Right.
And maybe maybe it would be like one machinist who's like a fixture programmer guy, like a couple of me's and like a project manager would probably be the dopest thing. Cause like I like to do the work, you know?
Right.
That's what I'm good at.
Yeah.
Like the way that I look at it right now, if I was going to be hiring anybody, it would just be like for programming and design. And I would still go do the physical work. Cause like what I found is I'm like fast, you know, and I can't like with the timelines that we're doing, like I know what I'm capable of. And like, I know other people are as capable as me, but also like I can't rely on that right away.
Right.
So it's like, I just design it, program it, we'll make it. And then I'll go like kill myself at the customer and we'll figure it
out. Yeah. Well, and you're a people person. So like it makes sense for sure. Let's see. This is probably a quick one. Wannabe machinist asks, best practices for setting WCSs on a horizontal. Do you like one per part position or one at the center of rotation?
It depends. I mean,
he says discuss, but I have nothing to add to this. Like horizontals are not my jam. So
yeah, I mean, I just did the horizontal project and like first op stuff. Like I made the fixture, so I know like it's patterned. I just used one. Actually, I used one for both the first op and the second op because it's like a plus or minus 10 part means like nothing.
Right.
And I cut the final features for the second operation using the same work offset as what the part work offset was. So like all the features are in the same spot, and that worked out. So I had one first op, one second op part, or one first op, one second op work offset.
Okay.
And like if it gets wonky, I mean, that was that instance because the parts weren't like, I'm not like, I have these crazy blend issues and I got to hold like a couple thou and blah, blah, blah.
Right.
It's like,
you're not probing every part, that kind of stuff.
I didn't probe any parts.
Right.
Like I didn't, like it just doesn't matter. So
yeah,
I am a real hater of center of rotation programming on horizontals just because I've seen people crash the shit out of horizontals. I've watched machines crash because they're like, oh, go to Z of an inch, and then it's like now you just smashed your spindle into the part or your fixture or whatever. And I think I've told that story on here before of the guys in Arizona or up in Tempe or Mesa who totaled two machines over the course of like technically 2 business days on a Friday, one on a Friday, one on a Monday.
No.
And for that exact reason. And so like if it has rotations and it matters, I will a lot of the times use a different work offset for each rotation.
Okay.
And do like a probing like probe the part and then knowing between like where the center of rotation is to where the part is. And I have like a macro for this, that center of rotation to the part, and then it just maths out the different offsets. So you don't have to like find them. It just does it for you. It works really well.
I like that.
Yeah. And do that first op, second op. Cause like center rotations for the birds. Really like the best way in my opinion is just like if you're on a FANUC control, just spend the $1,700 and get fucking tilted work planes, do 68.2, and then you can just do it off the face of the part.
Oh, okay.
Easy peasy.
Right. That makes sense. Jeff was asking me best and worst thing about the new shop that you weren't expecting. He said, example, pro, you and Brad can both use the bathroom at the same time. Con, you and Brad end up using the bathroom at the same time.
Yeah.
Actually, so it's a similar, like, 2 sides of the same coin. It's super nice to be here. Like, it's AC and a nice space to be here. Because it's so nice, it means that, like, it's much easier for me to work late nights and not feel it.
Yeah.
Like, I definitely get tired, but it's like, the other shop after like 10 or 11 hours felt real constricting and was just like, if I would get hungry or I'd get thirsty, and it's just like, I got a tiny fridge and nothing. And like, here I've got an RO water dispenser and like, snacks and stuff.
You like go outside at the old shop and it's like, oh, cool. There's some drug addicts.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I might get murdered tonight. Cool. Yeah. So that's definitely one best and worst thing. I don't know. The best thing is by far that it is just a nice place to work. Like I truly do enjoy coming here now, seeing the summer quickly approaching and seeing like, we've had a few 90-degree days lately. And then I get in the shop, I'm like, oh, we got AC. Yeah. It's really nice in here. Cool.
Yeah. Fire up the Hermela. Just fucking go to town.
Yeah.
I don't even care.
Oh man, I couldn't imagine having the Hermela in a non-AC place now because like the compressor puts out a ton of heat. The Hermela puts out, I'm sure, a ton of heat. Like I don't feel it, but like there's the spindle chiller and there's the whole coolant system and like a million pumps and a million things. It's like that thing, I bet, pumps out heat.
Yeah. Also, imagining the Hermela in the old shop is kind of funny. It would just like take up the whole thing.
Yeah, it would be the shop. Like I could have the Hermela or I could have 3 brothers.
Yeah. Yeah. Not both.
Other cons of the new shop. I have to drive through the U of A to get here. And people are so stupid. Yeah. Like, so stupid. Yeah. Just the worst drivers. Yeah. Like Tucson has some real bad ones anyway. Like going through the freeway underpass to the old shop, had some traffic, but it was people like trying to get to work and like coming down this way now towards the airport and through the U of A. It's just like, oh, you're just the worst of people.
Yeah.
Like, cool. All right.
Get out of my face.
Yeah, I'm going like full Dennis Reynolds in traffic right now.
You dumb bitch.
Exactly. Let's see. I don't have an answer for this one. I already told him my tongue-in-cheek answer. Joel asked, do you have any tips or tricks for milling and turning Hastelloy C22?
No.
Yeah. I told him mine is, I said, easy peasy. No quote.
I don't know. I think I've cut Hastelloy like once, and I don't even know what it, like if it was C22 or whatever, and it was like the dumbest part I've ever had to make because it was a bracket with a 0 true position on a hole that was like plus 2/10 minus nothing.
Ooh.
And yeah, it was so tiny, and we just couldn't measure it like at the other, like it was the worst thing ever because it'd be like, you're off by a lot. And then I'd be like, no way, I'm shot. And then I'd bring it back and they're like, well, now you're off the other way. It's like, that's the same part. So like, what the fuck?
You're like, I tricked you. I got you.
Yeah.
Same
and
part.
It's like, and I hate this for all of us because like, what are we doing here?
Oh man. Good luck, Joel. Your friend and mine, Alex Kern, asked, elaborate on the cycle time thing to educate people about like how cycle time actually doesn't matter in many cases.
Right. Yeah, because I like, yeah, Dan posted that meme. I think that's part of it. Did you not see that?
Mm-mm.
He posted this like bell curve meme. That
Oh,
was, like,
I did. Yeah.
And he tagged me because like we had dinner recently.
Uh-huh.
And Alex couldn't be there because he said he hated our guts.
Oh,
Yeah.
makes sense.
Yeah. He was like, I'm really tired, and I drove really far. It's like I drove 42 hours to be here.
Oh, I didn't realize you got dinner with him on after your drive.
No, it was at
like
the
a day
end.
or whatever.
It was at the end of the week.
That's
So,
awesome.
like, yeah. So it was very recently. But we were discussing like I've seen it multiple times in that like process. I mean, like Scoob did a video on this when it's on our Instagram about like process reliability versus process speed and everything. And there's always this inclination to go faster. And I know we've talked about this a lot on here, but it's like, if you're like in your situation, like you're kind of in front of your machine all the time, but like, what is the difference between like a 3-hour cycle time and like a 2-hour 45-minute cycle time? You know,
Yeah.
Like if you're like not Johnny on the spot, or you're like watching every part, like, does it really make that when you're making like 5 pieces?
Right.
Like,
Well, I've got 2 machines per person here too. So it's like, I don't care.
Yeah.
I tell people that all the time. They're like, oh, like how fast can you make that part? Or how fast do you push that tool? And I'm like, don't ask me for speed demon speeds and feeds, because I'm not going to give them to you. Like I don't have them because mine are like, this tool will be reliable for 100,000 hours in the cut with this like speed and feed. And that's what I go with. Yeah.
Because it's like, it's really interesting when you start talking to people. It's like, how long do you think that tool lasts? It's like, it's aluminum. So like 2 years.
Right.
And it's like, wait, what? It's
like, till I do something stupid.
Like,
that's what it'll last.
We're changing inlays like every 3 months. And it's like, what are you doing? like what is happening? Like, are you just like ripping for like 24 hours straight every day? But like my most practical example of this was down in when I was with Methods, we did a project, big automated Nakamura project on like the worst material ever. And what ended up happening like was in the scope document, it was not based on parts per day. It was based on a cycle time. And they calculated parts per day or whatever based on a cycle time. And they're like, it needs to do whatever. But the scope explicitly stated 5 minutes, 30 seconds cycle time or something like that. And we were at like 6 minutes, 30 seconds. So it was like a minute slower. And when we ran, that's what we found was the most reliable. And when we would run, we would get more parts per day with the 6 minute, 30 second cycle time than we would at the 5 minute, 30 second cycle time.
Because you're not changing tools.
Yeah.
There's no downtime.
Right.
Yeah.
And the customer was just like, no, we need it to be faster. So it's like,
You're like, fine, that's fine.
well, it's just like, it just got so weird. And then it's this type of thing always happens, which is an aside, which is like you make it faster and like then they run it and then they eventually get it back to the time that you had it at or slower because they do like the reliability of it.
Mm-hmm.
So it just comes down to like throughput matters more than, I mean, it's like literally the whole thing, right? Like it's the goal.
Yeah,
the book.
it's the goal.
Yeah. Like is how many good parts am I shipping per day?
Yeah, out of the system. Like
yeah, yeah, and not how fast can I make a single part? Because a lot of the times, like it just doesn't fucking matter.
Yeah,
you know, like you made that part in like 5 minutes. Cool. Like, was it good?
right.
You know, like first piece yield is a really good, like when you start going for like OEE or whatever, overall equipment efficiency or something like that.
Oh.
And like, I've been hearing that a lot recently, OEE and like parts per day or, you know,
Tell me you're talking to bean counters without television.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And you're just like, it's like, but, I was talking, I'm not going to say who I was talking to, but I was talking to, like, when I was down in LA, I was having lunch or dinner with a buddy, and he was like, we focused really, really hard on OEE. So we were cranking spindles and like everything was running, but our scrap rate was 30%. So like, who fucking cares? You know?
Yeah.
And then and so it's like, cool. So you were cranking, but you were just throwing everything away. First piece yield is like terrible because you're going for fast parts over good parts first.
Even if it's good too. Like that's why I mentioned the entire system. Cause like I've encountered that, like my last job, the production manager would be like, everybody has to be making parts. Like nobody can be, you know, walking at a slow pace kind of thing.
Yeah.
And it's like, cool. So now inspection has a 6-month backup.
Yeah.
We've made no more money today.
And when you're in aerospace, sometimes you have to do like when you're like flight hardware, like one of my customers was doing like flight hardware. So like you have to do source inspection. So you like make the part and you do all the stuff you need to do. And like sometimes like you have to like for that stuff, you're doing like really intense testing before you can even source. And then source is on their time, not your time. So like you cranked these fucking parts out and then what?
And then they sit.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they're like, oh, source guy's sick.
Yeah.
It'll be a week. Like,
and this is a weird thing, but like sometimes parts need to sit for you to actually know if they're good or bad. Like, I mean, I've talked to like quite a few people that are like, I cut a part and then I let it sit and then I came back and then when I measured it off the machine, it was good. And then the next day it wasn't good. It's like, oh, it normalized. Right. And now it's different. And now you see that in like plastics.
I was going to say plastics. Yeah.
Or
the it's like the water will fall out of it. Like, or like, you know, evaporate or something.
Yeah, like, oh shit, this bore is now 14,000 bigger than when I cut it. Like, oh shit.
Yeah.
So like, yeah. Cycle time. It's like good parts over fast parts. Like I think focusing on a good, like quick, efficient setups with like a 80% of optimized program, which is where like you get into like CAM templates and like your workflow or whatever. So it's like, well, I know this is a formula that's gonna get me most of the way there. And getting like for us, I mean, mostly for you, but like just like getting something running is way better than like spending 2 days like, oh, can I squeeze like 30 fucking seconds out of this thing?
So it's really funny you mentioned that. This is a total aside, but Phil Butterworth, I think in one of his talks or maybe on his Instagram at some point, he had mentioned his workflow of like, oh, I'll program like a few tool paths, throw them in the machine, start getting them running, and then I'll go back and finish it. And I've never done that because the brothers are just dummy fast, and like nothing I was doing in them was complex enough that like running the roughing would like give me any time to program.
But now they got the Hermela.
Yeah. It's like, oh, I can do all my roughing and like a few flats and a few contours, and it's like that might be 5-6 minutes, 10 minutes maybe.
Yeah.
Like that is enough to go back and like program my drills and load them into the Hermla and then like reload the program real quick.
I do that quite a bit on the projects, like where if I'm like uncertain of how certain things are going to go, I'll just like, I'll rough and start finishing. And then once I know how that is, then I'll make more like concrete decisions on like the rest of the part and like how it's going to like essentially be forever, you know?
Yeah. Well, and like I found that because there's much more work selecting all of the geometry now and like all the tool orientations and all that like for me and the way my mind works, like getting over that hill all at once is like a big lift sometimes when like the part's very complex.
Yeah.
And so like accomplishing small goals throughout the thing make it so much more doable and so much quicker of like, oh, I got this easy win and then I got this easy win and then like, oh, I loaded the drill and tap and like ran those 2 ops. That's another easy win. And, oh, look, the part's done. Like, cool. Okay.
It's a really funny way of doing things. Like, because people go off about like, oh, like I need to like do everything or whatever. But sometimes it's just like you're wasting time.
Yeah.
Just make the part.
Yeah.
You know, like just make the fucking part.
Yeah.
It's not that hard.
I totally got sidetracked though.
Not like that. Well, I mean, we were just going off about about cycle time, you know? Yeah. Like I've known so many, like, and I was this way where it's like, I made this part so fast. And it's like, and then I'll never forget this, like the most humbling moment of like my early career was like, how fast do you think I made this part? And they were like, but this person knew that I had been working on it for like months, like for a while. And it's like, I don't know, like 2 months. And it's just like, got him. So like, yeah, it's just.
You're like, all right, I'll shut up now.
Yeah, if you make a part in 15 minutes, but it took you like 3 weeks to get there.
Yeah.
Like I tell all my customers try and hammer cycle time, whatever. It's like, I am not going to focus on cycle time until we have good parts. Like one of the customers that I was training recently, like we hadn't even, like they didn't know how to program the MX100. So I was doing that part too. I'm actually like that's who I'm going to see on Sunday to like do actual training.
Oh, geez.
But like we're in the middle of like proving the part, and he's like, "So what about the bar loader?" And I'm like, "We're not talking about that. Like, why?
We need to make one part first."
Yeah, like
what are you talking about?
Like, if we make a good part, like at this moment in time, if we make a good part, you're just going to be loading You're going to be loading bars through the spindle, like, and that'll be fine until I come back.
Yeah.
Like,
I remembered. I thought of a point and then lost it, and then it came back.
Nice.
The other thing you got to remember with cycle time and improving cycle time in big air quotes is you have to view it as a risk management equation.
Right.
So like, if I push my roughing tool 100% faster, and I've got 4 parts to make and I save 2 minutes a piece,
right,
but I break my tool anywhere in there, I lose money.
All of it.
I lose it all. Yeah. Or the bigger thing, like I see this all the time of people like, oh, well, I'm going to get like this big ass insert cutter and do high feed stuff in my like Tormach. And I'm like,
you don't have the balls to push that.
Well, and like the quick and dirty math I do is like, okay, a brother spindle is like 10 grand.
Right.
Here's my shop rate. Here's how many parts I'm running.
Oh, sure.
Here's how much time I save. Yeah. If those don't equal each other, or like the time saved is more or equal to a new spindle, I'm not doing that sketchy ass thing because it's just not worth it.
It's not worth it.
Like, no.
Yeah. Because like people overestimate like how efficient they are too. Like it's like today, my customer was telling me, he's like, well, when I change over the parts, it only takes me like 2 minutes. But in the fixture plate, because we hadn't set them to like pull them out, he's like, it takes 8. It's like, right. But this runs 6, you run 2, and you're not at the machine every time it's ready. So this saves you time. You're not counting in that 2 minutes the amount of time that the machine sat. And you're timing yourself to see how fast you can do it. So like, you're making yourself as efficient as possible in that moment.
Right.
What is like, how's the average?
Yeah.
And so like,
it's the driver mod analogy of like, when I was doing track days and stuff on motorcycles and cars, and like I worked at a track for a little bit, people would be, you know, on breaks talking of like, oh, I'm going to get like these carbon fiber bits and blah, blah, blah. Like, or I'm going to like buy this supercharger, and like especially with motorcycles, people would be like, yeah, or you could like go on a diet, like fat ass, like, you know, you'll save more. You're going to save 5 ounces with that carbon fiber bit for your bike, or you could like save 30 pounds if you stopped eating that double cheeseburger. And it's like, oh yeah.
Yeah. Get wrecked.
Yeah. But it's that thing of like, yeah, if you're not optimized and everything isn't else optimized, like there's just no point. It's just like I'm not saying like, you know, run things at 100 surface feet and like one chip or two for everything. But
yeah, it's like, it's not like, well, I do everything in 4-ops instead of like I do a 2-op part in 4-ops because I want to stress relieve it or whatever. And like, it's like there's always the extreme aspect of that, but that's why I like to use like 80% of optimize, which is like really arbitrary, but it's mostly just getting across like don't squeeze everything out of it, you know, like. And another point in the Nakamura column, what I like it a lot is it just automatically records every tool that's cutting and how long it's been called for and how long it's been cutting for. So so when you're squeezing cycle time, because like you see people like I was talking to like Brody Huck or something, and he was like we were talking. Oh, it was the cycle times thing actually. Where you'll have like a tooling rep come in and be like, well, you could run that drill faster. And it's like, oh yeah, you're right. I could save a whole second.
Yeah.
Like,
you want to sell me more drills? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, it's like read the fucking room, man. It's the fastest operation of this part where I'm going to save the least amount of time. It's also like it's a $400 drill. So like if it breaks, it's going to suck for me, but it's like, so it's reliable now. Like I'm not going to like, oh, I can go from like 40 to 80 inches a minute over like half an inch.
Right.
What?
Who cares?
Imperceptible. Yeah. It's an imperceptible amount of time. Unless you were doing like 16,000 holes or something like that, then it probably starts to math out. But if you're in like 3 or 4 holes per part, like eat it.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Zach was asking me, what do I like most and least about Heidenhain versus the Brother and other controls I've used? Tool management is awesome. Yeah. It's one of my favorite parts. Like it's more work to put in because you have to like give it a name and give it a length and a radius. And I've just not had a machine with a laser and thing. Like I just don't have to do any of that on the Brothers.
Yeah.
Like I said, it automatically sets tools that aren't set. Super cool. Yeah. Like I can load them up while the machine is running. Like, you know, talking about like throwing a roughing tool path at it. I can throw a roughing tool path. I can throw tool paths at it that I don't even have tools built for it and just like throw them in before they're called and like it's golden.
Yeah.
Love that. Right now I am struggling with, and I texted our group chat with, you know, Zach and Mickey and stuff about it. I'm very used to the Brother controls where it is like super hard to get a cutter comp error.
Right.
Or almost impossible. Like I can tell it to apply cutter comp on a 1 thou lead in on a tool and it just was like, dope, let's do it. Heidenhain seems to be super picky about that. Like I keep getting the tool radius too large error constantly. Like the parts I was doing today and yesterday are kind of like a L bracket with like a U-shape cut out of them.
Yeah.
And I was doing a contour pass around them from the silhouette. So like there are 2 sharp corners where like the U overlaps itself. On the Brother would have just done those. Like it would have just ran it into the corner and moved on.
Yeah.
It errored out every time. I had to run it in computer comp instead of in control. And I'm still trying to work it out. I emailed Hermla and I need to send them like a test file so they can kind of see what I'm doing. It sounds like first response was like, well, it's not good to like put a tool into a sharp corner. I was like, I really wanted to like email them back and be like, let's assume I'm not stupid and I've been doing this a decade.
Yeah. It's like,
and we'll start there.
We know that.
Yeah. This is not for finish. I'm going in and finishing those corners later with the right sized end mill. Like this is it does not matter. Yeah. So that's been extremely frustrating. Yeah, there's not like a ton that's really frustrating about it. It's just stuff like that where like it wants to do things a very specific way.
Yeah.
So, and again, it's just learning. Like I'm just so used to FANUC and FANUC based machines where like I'll just jump into the parameters and fix that because I've had that same kind of error on like a FANUC machine. You go in and like I don't remember what parameter it is, but like you tweak it's
like you can get in there.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's like a user parameter in Brother, I think, how it deals with cutter comp. And it's like, and I'm sure there's probably a code to enter and a switch to flip somewhere in Heidenhain. I just don't know it. So I'll get through it. Let's see. Oh, this is not a question, but Todd Sandercock said that I should have you interview me as I give you a shop tour sometime.
Okay.
I think that would be a fun,
that would be fun
podcast / YouTube episode thing.
Yeah. In July when I'm back here.
That'd be perfect. Preston Murray asked, where should someone look to start learning macros?
Good question. I mean, my default answer is like, what do you want to do with macros? Always. That's number one. Like, what do you want to do with the macros? Because like, if it's just general knowledge, like the Peter Schmid book, is always a good place to start. We have that. There's like that GitHub knowledge base we have going on. That's like got some other information. Like knowing what you want to do helps. Like the learning process, so then you can like apply it to something and like try it. If it's just like what are variables, then like the Peter Schmid book will get you there.
Yeah,
it's like, I mean, like what they are and versus how to use them are like two different things.
Yeah, I would go into it with a specific project in mind because otherwise, it's just going to be a whole lot of information that's going to go in one ear and out the other.
Yeah. It's just like you were talking about with like Nush, which was like you took a material science class in college, but like you had no practical application for that. So you were like, boring. Yeah. And now you're like, fuck, I wish I had that,
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
This one, we'll see. G-Code Manufacturing asked, how would you both of you approach a potential client that you cold emailed 2 years ago that finally replied to your email and wants to come talk to you?
I would talk to
them. Yeah, that's exactly. That was my first thing.
I mean, like if they're interested, like, I mean, why not? You know,
there's been so many times that I have been approached by a company, asked to fill out an NDA, get onboarded, and then hear nothing for a year.
Right.
And then all of a sudden it's like, oh, you're my best customer. Like, you know,
I think like it's important to remember that like some of these companies are just like massive bureaucratic machines that think they're moving fast, but we are like small, very like flexible companies that fast for us is like literally days and fast for them is like, it can be 2 years.
Yeah. Like there are people who are like, I got one project done all year. I'm so fast. Like I feel so good about myself.
Yeah. Like when the guys in Phoenix, they hit me up and they're like, oh man, we're going bananas. And it's like, it is some of the slowest shit I've ever seen. And it's like, I mean, but to them, like, it's not for them, there's just way more paperwork and bullshit involved. Mm-hmm. That we don't see. Yeah. That they're like, oh God, I got to do all this thing. And like, because like we did a ship book for them and then they did a ship book. Then they did like their own setup document on top of that, which was like 5 times bigger than what we provided them. And it's like every little fucking detail. You're like, oh my God. Yeah. That's an incredible level of detail, but they just have to. Yeah. Cause it's like flight hardware shit. Yeah. Yeah,
I wouldn't. No, thanks.
Yeah.
I've done that stuff. Yeah. Paperwork's not my forte.
Right. And so like that's probably why these people like I mean, you and I have both I don't know. I've done it, you probably have done it where like you start a conversation with somebody and then they leave and then somebody else picks it up and that's like literally why it didn't they needed it, but then they left.
Oh,
so
yeah.
Then, so then somebody else finds it and they're like, oh, I guess, yeah, like they dust it off and they're like, so do you want to do this? And you're
Right.
like, oh,
Well, for me, it's
yeah.
like, oh yeah, you're like dealing with that engineer and they leave. And then somebody else is like, oh, you're on our approved supplier list, right? And I'm like, yeah. And they're like, oh, cool. We'll send you work. I'm like,
yeah.
go.
Nice. Yeah.
Whatever you say, man. All good. Yeah. So I would take the meeting. What's the worst that can happen?
Yeah.
Like you lose an afternoon.
You're literally in the same spot you're at now.
Yeah.
Right now.
Unless you're like, if you come back and you comment and you're like, well, they're 8 hours away. I mean, you might say go for it anyway, but for me,
yeah, I mean, 8 hours, that's like a day trip.
Yeah, that's light work.
Yeah.
All righty. That's all the questions we have.
Cool. That was a lot of questions.
Yeah,
So,
I told you.
Back to breakfast, right? I mean, dude, it's been like those free breakfasts in the hotel.
I was going to say, I actually didn't want to talk about your food, but man, the stuff you have sent us like on your crazy road trip, it was like, oh, Chris is just trying to poison himself across the U.S. Like,
yeah, gas station hard-boiled eggs.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking of.
Yeah. Hey, those are clutch.
I was just waiting for you to be like, yeah, so I found this weird gas station and got sushi there. Feeling kind of weird.
Yeah, I'm trying to low carb it. So sushi's out. Yeah. So I ate raw fish from a gas station in Nebraska. And now, like, we've had some problems.
Oh, man. Well, what you been researching this week?
Flights. That's kind of it. Like, I haven't really. Actually, it's been just like a lot of tooling, just making sure like we're dialed in for starting the project next week and like crossing my T's and dotting my I's and whatever.
Making sure you don't have a repeat of Arizona a couple weeks ago. Yeah,
exactly. Which it almost was. They're like, because I sent the tool list, like, hey, double checked, everything's available. Like, everything's in stock either in the US or in Europe. So like, we should be able to get it all by Monday, no problem. And he's like, cool. So like, who's ordering it? And it's like, you're ordering it. Like, and it's like, oh, he's like, and then I was like, oh my God, what is happening right now? And then he emailed me back and was like, oh, yep, I see the certs are in my name. And it's like, thank God. But yeah, that was a weird one. But that's kind of been it. Like, and yeah, nothing else. Like, I mean, everything else has been just kind of like, just finishing, cranking.
Okay.
What about you? Dual podcasting setups? Or?
Yeah, I mean, well, like I kind of knew what I was going to buy. Like I was like, oh, you know, SM7. You
get the daddy mic now.
Yeah. I had the XM7, which is the cheapo version. It's worked for a long time.
Yeah.
Now I got the Super Pro one.
I should have brought mine.
Yeah, that's all right. Sound good through that mic. It's just, you know, this is better.
Yeah, we'll see all the angry messages like, Chris cusses too much. He sounds like shit, and I didn't want to hear about his breakfast.
Yeah, I think that's about it. Like, I had to buy a new phone, but again, I kind of knew what I was getting.
Right.
Nothing really to research there.
Yeah, iPhone 15.
That's a good joke.
Yeah.
Yeah, nothing else really. Like, we haven't really bought or tried any specific tooling. We did have Brandon from Hoffman come by, which was cool.
Okay.
And he told me that they rep Promax now.
Promax.
The mill company.
Okay.
And I guess Promax got bought out by Sarah Tizet.
Okay.
Sometime in the last couple of years.
Sure.
And so he was like, you got to try their stuff. It's like top notch now. Some of the best grind quality out there. I guess it's all in the Bay Area maybe or somewhere in California.
Okay.
Because the thing that like we love Hoffman, their slitting saw has been fantastic.
Yeah.
And the brothers liked their tooling, but like their stock levels are kind of all over the place. It just depends on like what's requested in the US and most of it's in Germany. And so like, it's very hard to know what is in stock. And like, so Brandon dropped off a catalog of like, hey, these are US stock items. So like, cool. All right.
Yeah.
Then Promax, because it's in California, is like, very quick turnaround. So
Cool.
I think I might give it a shot,
Yeah.
at least for some steel additional tooling. And, it's always nice to have more than one source. Like I really love Freza, but like,
you never know.
yeah, exactly. So, yeah, that's pretty much what we've been researching, I think.
Nice.
What have you been doing to better yourself?
Nothing. That's the one thing. I mean, like, truly, I've been proud. I've been very mean to myself. You know, I've been grinding myself into dust. I have been trying to like eat a little bit better, so it's not like all a bad time, but like for the most part, it's just like I was talking to Jason about this earlier, which is like, it's just so easy to like lock in, and then I'm like, oh, I can like on the path I'm on right now. If I just like don't fuck it up, then I'll be okay. And so it's just like, well, that's the goal. Nothing else matters. But then I'm like sleeping like 4 hours a night and like taking like 5 a.m. flights or whatever, 6 a.m. flights to like another customer and then go like being up for like almost 24 hours in those days or blah, blah, blah.
I'm just looking at the time. I'm like, yeah,
exactly. Like I have like an hour and a half drive home to like wake up at like 3.
yeah. Fair enough.
Yeah. I'll be able to sleep on Saturday though.
Good.
Yeah.
Good. I'm planning on sleeping on Sunday.
Yeah, nice. That's always good when you're like, well, I'll be able to relax on that day.
Yeah.
Which is like 5 days from now after like working 20 days straight or something.
Yeah, actually, so the thing, I have not yet done it, but the thing I realized this week that I'm going to better myself on is I have now twice or 3 times, and I'm currently in the middle of one, overpromised and underdelivered. Like we've run late on a couple jobs and like gotten in over our heads.
Yeah.
And I think thinking about it more clearly today, that it was kind of a subconscious fear response of like, oh, we just took on all of this financial responsibility. We're in this new place. Right. I have to say yes to everything.
Right.
I have to quote everything. And like, that's so antithetical to like the foundations of the company.
Yeah.
Like everything I've said and everything I've worked towards is like taking the right jobs, doing the right thing. Yeah. And it only in thinking about it today was like, oh yeah, you're not doing that. You should probably stop this.
Yeah. Stop taking everything.
Yeah. So that is one thing I'm going to be working on is like recentering to our values. And if something looks messed up, it's probably just messed up. Like, you can't fix her. Like it's,
Heard that.
Yeah. So that is, I haven't worked on it yet, but I will. One thing before the last question that I want to bring up, you, me, and Jason are going to be doing a lean review episode soon.
Sanity.
Yes, lean sanity. So Jason found this absolutely wild video, and I will post it on the Patreon and the story probably a week beforehand.
Yeah.
But we want you to write in and send us your lean adoption stories, both good and bad.
Yeah.
Pictures are welcome. Send them to withintolerancepodcast@gmail.com. We're going to put together a bunch to kind of go over and review together because, he sent us this video and like Jason sent it at like, I don't know, 11:30 at night or 10 o'clock or something. It was
so late. And I woke up to like 68 messages on the WhatsApp. And I'm like, oh, like Mickey and Zach were going off because that's typically what it is.
Right.
It's Mickey and Zach just like beating each other off. And you're like, okay. But it was Jason and you beating each other off. And I was like, oh, what is going on here? And then I look up and it's like, this is insane. And then I listen to the video and it's like, what the fuck is going on right now?
Oh, yeah.
And you read the comments and it's like, I've been a chef for 20 years and that is the most unhinged shit I've ever heard in my entire life. It's like, I'm a computer engineer and that was a lot.
Yeah, that was one of my favorites was like, there was a comment that was like, I'm really glad I have a low stakes job like a rocket scientist and not this madness. It was like, oh man.
Put a bowl on the plate. You got to put a napkin down with a brown sugar packet on it, obviously.
Well, yeah, but the sugar packet's got to be upside down because otherwise you've marked it wrong.
Yeah.
Anyway, please write in, send us pictures or stories of your best and worst lean implementation stories, and we will talk about them and review them alongside this unhinged video.
Oh, yeah.
And so, anyway, last question.
Do like a watch along?
I'm not sure how to do it.
I think a watch along would be incredible.
But it might. We'll have to figure it out. We all have decent cameras too. I can send you one if you don't. Depending on where
you bought me a camera.
Oh, did I?
Remember? Because we were going to do the book club as a video podcast.
Oh, that's right.
But then after the first one, it's like, editing this is hard. So fuck that.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. I was editing like the trailer for it. And it was like, this took me like an hour. I'm not doing this. Yeah. All right. So you got a good camera too. So maybe we will do a watch along. That might be fun. I bet you one of my editing tools now has like a AI who's speaking
for sure,
face thing.
Yeah.
All right. So last question then. What's a win from this week that you can share with us?
Wrapping LA was a win. Even though it's not like done, getting the machine here in Arizona back up and like we even though I basically had to start over, which is really fucking annoying. I got it further than it was before I left.
Okay, good.
So that's a win. Also, like, realized I almost bought like $4,000 worth of Mighty Bites because what the initial plan was to. This is actually the real win. Now that I think about it, I was like, oh, I'm gonna cut these all to size because they're round and like have each one be its own like thing, and then it's like. Mighty Bite legitimately just like doesn't make that many of them. So like I bought like all that MSC had, which is like a dozen. And what I found was like, oh, I could just use the largest diameter size because of how I cut the like fixed side for all the sizes. So I only need 12 instead of like 40.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. Yeah. Like, because what I like to describe what I did, like, so it's a circle, right? It's a round, but instead of like having the fixed side be like a full round contact, I cut the middle out of it. Okay. Just a little bit. Yeah. So that if it's bigger or smaller, it'll always have 2 points of contact.
It's just like a big V block, basically.
Yeah, but it's still round.
Right.
It's still but yeah, exactly. It's a V block, but it's like form fitting.
Okay.
And then so on the other side, if it's 1, then it's like we always have 3 points of contact instead of just 2. So like it does act like the V in like a point. And that was like, I tried that today where I put the smallest part in the biggest Mighty Bite and like it was zero difference. So I was like, done. That's what we're doing.
Easy peasy.
Yeah. Because I was going down this road because I could not get enough to do all of it. And I was like, what am I going to do? And I had drawn up this like really complicated, like stepped shape in like a fucking 2-inch like land to like be able to like hold it. And I'm like, what if I just don't do that? What if I just like do this thing? And it's like, it's not like quote unquote proper or whatever, but it is because it works. Right. So,
Yeah. I mean, 3 points is proper.
Yeah, that's right. That's exactly it. Is like, we got 3 points. We're winning. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah. So that's a good win. And then I don't know. It seems like I've been like this week feels like I've gotten a call like every fucking day. That's like new project. And it's like, this is incredibly dope, but also like incredibly overwhelming. Yeah. But that's a good thing,
Just because it's a good thing does not make it not stressful, though.
Exactly.
If there is anyone you can have a shoulder to cry out about this, I totally understand. It still sucks. Yeah. Like,
you're like, oh, I'm cranking. It's awesome. And then it's like, I don't even have enough time to sign all these NDAs.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like, oh, I remember what sleep used to be like.
Yeah.
I remember what eating normal hours feels like. Yeah. So awesome.
Yeah, back on breakfast corn.
Oh man, I got him started.
These like little Chobani, 20-gram protein, like little like yogurt drinks. Really tasty.
Oh my god.
Oh, so good. Those have become a breakfast staple.
Gives you ASMR.
Yeah, that's good stuff.
We lost half the audience.
Gas station hard-boiled eggs really hit the spot.
My win from this week, I ran an order. So I've been talking a lot to Garrett Wade.
Yeah.
And like when I first got the Hermla, because I jumped right into that part that was mostly surfacing.
Right.
He kept being like, man, I can't wait until you just like do a 3-axis part in less setups and just get it done.
Right.
And so it was really exciting. This week I had an order of 9 different part numbers, of which 7 went on the Hermla and were one and done.
Yeah.
Like I broke them off, sanded the bottom.
And you're like, oh, this is my dream in my life. So do you find yourself like, are you getting close to like overbooking the Hermla?
Probably. And it's probably because it's that adage of like everything's a nail when you have a hammer.
Yeah, it's a new tool. So you're like, well, it's got to go on the Hermla.
Well, that, and like I want to put as much through it as I possibly can quickly so that I just like learn it.
Yeah.
And like can feel comfortable. Because like there's still that like unfamiliarity when I throw a part on there. I'm like, I don't know how this is going to come out. Whereas like on the Brothers, it's like, I know 1,000 ways this can go wrong and I can plan against them. Yeah. And I know what this is going to sound like and I know what's going to feel like and all that stuff. And like the Herm was like, I don't know. We'll see. Like,
You're like, I'm a fresh little baby right now.
Yeah. And then I think it's also that my customers are like, oh, you've got a 5-axis. Here's a part that like, yeah, you could probably do on like a 4th or a 3-axis, but like it's a Hermla part, you know, like, so. I just actually got an RFQ just before you came down of parts that I made 6 months ago on the 4th and then like 3 ops afterwards.
Oh shit.
And
you're like, this is a 1-op part, baby.
They might be, honestly. Yeah. They might actually be a 1-op part in the Hermla, and I'm super excited.
You're like, oh baby.
Yeah. Well, one of them we'll see. I would have to be I'll have to be very creative to make it a 1-op part.
Right. There was a part my customer showed me, and they were like, this takes like 6 ops. And it's like, I'm like, I'm pretty sure we could do this in 1-op in the horizontal. And they're like, are you serious? It's like, yeah, totally.
Oh my goodness. Yeah.
It's like this long. It's like 18 inches or something like that. And it's like hollow.
Oh, wow.
We could do it.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. I definitely already have like bad thoughts of like, how do I afford a palletized C250 to stick next to this thing? Like,
yeah, you're like, get out of here. It's two Hermlas, 1 brother.
Yeah,
it seems like a pretty good, maybe like a VF2.
yeah, probably not.
He muted it when he leaned over to throw up. Right there.
I don't know. I think that's probably part of this whole like growing thing that I need to do of like getting back to core values is also being like, all right, yeah, you want to play with the new toy, but like, you can also, and to be fair, 3 out of the 4 days this week, I've run 2 of the Brothers and the Hermla.
Right.
So like, it's not like I'm not running the Brothers too. Yeah. I just want to run the Hermla more.
Right. Yeah.
So yeah, that was a big win though. It was like, I thought it was funny is I programmed them as 2-op parts.
Right.
And then the first part I left, I think 5 thou in cam for tabs.
Yeah.
And it was so strong I couldn't pull the part off the block. And I was like, oh, okay. And then so like I went down to 1.5 thou or something and like it pulled off, but I was like, this is still pretty rigid. And I was like, I wonder if I can just finish that face too. And then just sand it. And I was like, and then I did it. I was like, I guess they're all going to be like this.
Yeah.
You know?
You're like, this is my life now.
Yeah.
I love this.
So yeah, that was a big win. Alrighty, man. Well, thanks so much for driving down.
Yeah,
Doing
sure.
another in-person one. This was actually a ton of fun. I mean, actually, like I expected it not to be.
Yeah.
This was a ton of fun.
Like all the breakfast talk was kind of a lot, and I mean, I am really excited about the Delta Lounge in the morning and what's going on there, but like, this was also a very good time.
No, thank you so much for driving down, bringing me food, and hanging out.
It was Cane's, by the way.
Yes, it was for anybody who wanted to know.
Everyone wants to know. Cane's unsweet tea, classic combo.
Yep. What can I say?
3-finger combo.
Alrighty. Well, thank you all for listening. Thanks to the Patreon members who let me do things like buy a second mic so that I can do in-person podcasts at the shop now. Thank you all for listening, and I will be back next week.